Kumlan and Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Samach Samach Ahmed Aleph. We are going through a series of cases of what's considered Yayin Nesach. Now, just to remind you again, there's two parts of a wine from a goy. There's one part is if you're allowed to drink it, you're not allowed to drink it, and the other thing is whether it's mutter b'hanor or sabanto. The basis for wine being you're not allowed to drink it is because we're worried about intermarriage. Once we've laid down the din that you're not allowed to drink the wine because of intermarriage, and that's why it's also drinking, we then went the next step and said, well, now we're going to tag it to Yayin Esef, we'll make it Asa Bahana. And that is why going through the Gemara, some of the cases are only Asa in drinking, and some of the cases are also Asa in having Hano as well. And we have a number of machlekes of Rishonim. You know, for example, we spoke about the concept of maga ayidei davar acher, that you don't touch directly the wine, but you have something in your hand that you stir the wine with, or you're moving. You know, you're touching the wine with a davar acher. So obviously, it's also if the guy deliberately does it. But if it's, for example, maga ayidei davar acher shaloi bekavana, had no intention. Here we had a big machlekes Rabbeinu Tam and Rashi, where Rashi said it is still also, and according to in drinking at least, and according to Rabbeinu Tam, you're allowed to drink it as well. There's no problem, because Rabbeinu Tam holds a maga de davar acher is no different than koicha, your force, and koicha shalei bekavana, as we'll see, is mutter. And anyway, we'll go through a whole series, but just one thing to know, to bear in mind, that there's a general big machlekes between the Beis Yosef and the Ramah and Shulchan Aruch. The Beis Yosef takes all these dinim literally, and the Ramah is very mekel. And the Ramah writes a few very important laws that we need to know about regarding today. Number one, he says that today, right in the beginning, Kuf Chav Gimel, he says in Yeridea, we don't have Avodah Zarah. Especially in Chutz La'aretz, we don't have any Avodah Zarah. And later on, he says, in Kuf Chav Gimel as well, towards the end or middle, he says that every goy today is considered shaloi bekavana. Because even if they touch it, even if they have a mind, whatever they do, it doesn't matter, because it's a phrase that says minig abasei and biyadenu. We had right in the beginning of Masechta. It's not really Avodah Zarah. So therefore, he says we are very, very making, which actually, we'll forget that in a second. And then the Ramah says again, he says it over and over again, so therefore the Ramah says, a goy today, ayidei davar acher, with kavana, is mutter to drink. Because through davar acher with kavana is only asa b'shtia, because it's davar acher, right? You have you have a spoon, a fork, whatever it is, you have something else in your hand. A straw, so that's only asa because it's not direct. You're not touching. It's only asa b'shtia. Today we always go one step lower. So he says you're allowed to drink it. Now, interesting. The achreinim who argue with the Ramah, we don't really follow the Ramah himself. We are the achreinim. You'll look at the lashonos. There seems to be an argument. Some say when we rely on the Ramah only the hefsed meruba, and some say hefsed. Now, what exactly is it? No, you're about to incur a loss. If you can go sell it, there's no loss. So don't drink it, sell it. But if there's a loss involved, then you're allowed to. And the Shach throughout Kuf Chav Gimel, amazing. I don't know, a dozen times at least. Every time the Shulchan Aruch paskins that this is Asher B'Shtia, the Shach writes, but for us, it's Mutter B'Shtia, but he always writes the Mokum Hefsid. He doesn't add the word Meruba. Now, does that mean that he because in Kuf Chav Daled, where he talks about this whole machlekes, there he brings down that some say hefsed meruba. So does that mean the Shach rules that it's only a hefsed itself? You don't even need meruba. And what is the definition of meruba and hefsed? There is a Bekiva Eger in on Shulchan Aruch in the laws of kashering. He talks about that kleicheres wait 12 months. With Chacham Tzvi, hefsed meruba. He talks about what the definition of hefsed meruba is. You look at each dish. Or you look at the set. You can't use a set anymore because 3 of the dishes are a thing. That's called hefsed. How do you view hefsed? How do you understand hefsed meruba? It's never clearly defined. Or is it relative to each person? For me, it's a hefsed meruba. I'm poor. I can't afford to buy another bottle of wine. That's meruba. For you, it's nothing. How do you define it? Very, very unclear. But bottom line is, despite the fact that it says all of these dinim that Ramah says throughout, that we're always a step lower. It's in other words, basically, if something's usher in drinking only, today you're allowed to drink it. At least b'mokum hefsed. in one place he says it tastes like he says that, and to Gemara later that a chutz la'aretz is the din of Avodah Zarah, because the Torah talks about Yisrael the whole time. But on the other hand, in Yisrael, all you have is Ishmaelim. And the Rambam holds that Ishmaelim is not Bechal. How do we deal with Ishmaelim? They're not Oiv Avodah Zarah. No, the Rambam writes about Ishmaelim that they're not Oiv Avodah Zarah. Oh, you would think Ishmaelim, that's where it all started. Yeah. Correct. Anyway, so just fascinating how you learn this whole thing here. So the Ramaz gang is very, very makel the whole way through, and the Bes Yosef doesn't. It's all Ramah, even though yeah, for sure. We're talking even times the Rambam. The Rambam is the one who he lived amongst Ishmael. So he okay. Now let's do the Gemara. After Samacham at Aleph, after that introduction. Oh, and I'll tell you what's interesting is that the Ramah says that there's no blah blah. He holds Shashituf and Kufnan Vav. The Ramah holds that Shituf, like Christians who believe in Trinity is not Avodah Zarah, right? Everyone else argues the Ramah Paskas in Shulchan Aruch. So it seems to be his gang. But in Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, talks about if you're allowed to have a shul where there was a church. The Ramah Paskins that. Sorry, the Ramah, what is it, Paskin? The Ramah Paskin that churches today, even though a Shesi Ve'erev is not considered, it's only symbolic, as Taisa says, a cross, the crucifix is only symbolic, but he says in a church, it's Mamash Avodah Zarah. And that Samach Omed Aleph. So we're up to here. Amar Papa, 5 lines on top of the page. Amar Papa, the Papa says, Oivet Kachavim, if a goy Adona, the goy is holding onto a barrel, the Yisrael akuva, and the Yid is holding onto a jug. Then the chamra aser. Then the wine is aser because the goy is pouring the wine from the barrel into this jug. My time, kika asi, it's coming mekoyach oive kachav masi. It's coming from the koyach of a goy. Now Rashi here is puzzling, and all the Rishonim talk about, and the fact that the Rishonim say must be a tois hatfus. Rashi says that what do you mean the wine is aser? Even bahano. And they all ask, because Rashi said before clearly that if it's koyach, if it's only your force, it's only usher in drinking, not usher bahano. How come over here suddenly it's usher bahano? So the Ran and many others say must be a mistake in Rashi. Others try to make a difference between here and other cases we had before. Okay. Anyway, and if it's only usher in drinking, today, you'll be allowed to drink. Here it is. Today, if a guy pours wine into your glass, serving the wine, you'd be allowed to drink it. But most of Shayla learns only as a b'shtia. You're allowed, as a shalom party, you're allowed to drink it, but only if it's a have some meruba. So what taka happens? You're already at a simcha, and you bought all this wine, and they're all been opened up already, and you thought it was yain mevushal, turned out to be it wasn't mevushal, which I was one simcha that actually happened under a hashgach and everything else, but they made a mistake. Okay, it happens. And the goyim was starting to pour. What do you do then? That's mama to have some meruba. And wine at a function costs double the price. You pay for cookage and you pay for all of these these additional things.
So it's made an event, not for the people drinking it.
Yeah. So the question is, since they have some meruba, do we say that's the interesting point? But remember, I was wondering then what should the halacha be? I mean, rather the immediate reaction was got to get off the table and everything else, and took all the glasses away. But interesting point. Okay. Anyway, what about the other way around? Yisrael Adona, the Eid is holding the barrel, and the Goy is holding the jug, and the Eid is pouring into the Goy is just holding the jug. That's Chamra Shadi. The wine permitted because the Goy is just holding it stationary. What could be wrong here? But the Mitzadetz Dudi, remember, there's two kinds of there's 3 kinds. One is he puts his finger inside the wine, touches. That's the worst. Then there is if he's pouring, which is like a nasa, but pouring is only in front of Avodah Zarah. Really, that's what it is. And the other one is not pouring. If it's not in front of Avodah Zarah, it's shikshuch, stirring. It's stirring, but stirring, not if you're shaking a drop, if your hand is not still and you move, that's not called stirring. Stirring is stirring. So, but even if you're shaking it, then it's awesome. That's shikshuch, and then it's awesome. Another case. Hi, this guy, the Dori Zika, guy is carrying a canteen of wine, and the Eid walking right behind him, the Mashgiach, to make sure that he doesn't put his finger into the wine. So as far as Maga is concerned, that's the strictest of them all. We're not worried here, right? You didn't touch the wine. But there's a problem of shikshuk, of maybe shaking it. So Malia, if the canteen is full to the top, shari. Why? The lame karkish. It's impossible to shake it. You can't stir it. There's no room to move. It's still. So therefore, there's no maga, there's no touching, there's no shikshuk. So therefore, it's mutter completely. However, Chaseira, if it's not a full canteen, then Aser. Why? Because Dilma Mekarkish, that part you couldn't see whether he was shaking it or not. And maybe he was shaking it to Shem Avodah Zarah. So therefore it is forbidden. Okay. But then he says it. What about Kuva? Kuva is a jug that has no lid. There's no lid on it. So here's fakert. Here's the opposite. Malia, if it's forbidden, Aser, it's Aser. Why is it Aser? You're not going to shake it. He might have put his finger there. He was holding it sometimes, maybe from the top on the rim. And if it's full, it's a good chance that he touched it. Imanaga. If it's half full or less than full, shadi. Why he's shaking it? Over here, if he shakes it, what happens? It will spill out. So he dafka is very careful not to shake it, and even if he shakes it, he doesn't want it to be shaken. So this is worse than leibe kavana. This is kavana shaloi. He doesn't want to shake it because he's losing wine. The leinaga, he didn't touch it. He's shaking. He didn't touch it because it's the wine below, and the eater standing behind the watch. But the wine is what do you call it? But as far as shaking is concerned, we're not worried either because he doesn't want to lose the wine. Ravashi says, Zika, Ravashi says, when it comes to the canteen, I agree with you when it comes to the jug without the cover. But with Zika, when it comes to this canteen, Bain Malya, Bain Chaseda Shari, whether it's full, it's full. Whether it's empty, it's permitted. Now, why is it permitted? If it's half full, he's shaking it. Okay, when it's full, he watch it and touch it, and you can't shake it. But when it's half full, my timer. Ein derech nisach bekach. It's not the normal way of being menasich. What exactly does it mean by it's not the normal way of being menasich? Big machlek is a shaynim. The Ran in the back says because and there is another because you can't see what's inside, and no goy is going to do avodah zarah without being able to see the wine. And since the canteen is a leather pouch, and leather you can't see through, which then they say according to this, if it would have been glass. If the same thing story would be a glass thing that it's transparent plastic that you can see through, then it would be a problem, even though it's sealed and everything else. According to others, that nothing to do with the fact that it's what do you call it, that you can't see through it, because it's a closed bottle. And a closed bottle you don't shake, which means if a guy, and based on that I'm possible, the guy's allowed to carry your bottles of wine. If it's sealed, there's no problem there. Even if the guy shakes it and everything else, there's no problem because what do you call it? Not ein derech nisach bekach. Okay, Mark continues. Ma'atra zayda. What about if you have the place where you're the wine press? Now, how does normal wine press work? You have this heavy beam. Remember before you have a heavy beam that sits on top of the grapes and it presses it, right? It presses it down. Now, they used to have also in the Gemara we had this in Shabbos. The way it works is that they had on top. They had a pole that went through this stick. They have a big beam, heavy beam. Then right in the middle of the beam, there's a hole, and you have this pole going up, and then you have a hole on top of the pole, and then you have a screw there, and or a piece of metal there, and then you wind it. You keep on winding the screw, and the more you wind it, that beam, you're pushing it down and down and down and down. So, so the question is, can the guy operate that machine? To tread, before we talked about jumping on it and treading on it, and we had a homachlekes of beregel that's considered nisach. But here, the guy is doing it. It says koyach. How do we view koyach? Says the Gemara. Ma'atra zayda. So you have this thing at this wine press that have this beam. Rapapi shari. Rapapi allowed the guy to do it. He's not direct. It's only his force. Rabashi v'teimer Rashi also. And they asked Ravashi says, no, you can't. Or the similar Rashi says, you can't. Says the Gemara, big koichai, if it's his force, in other words, he's standing on top of the beam and he's pushing it down or something, look, pligi dasa, kulam pligi dasa. There's no question that it's usher. Because it's direct koyach, it's usher. Keep pligi, but koyach is also drinking. Keep pligi, but koyach koichai. He's turning this metal piece on top that then pushes the beam down lower and lower and lower. So he's 2 steps away. Koyach koichai. And we know that Hilchos Shabbos is a big difference in koyach and koyach koichai in the zikin. So here's this is a cause of a cause. What happens then? So that's one version, and that one version is that they're arguing koyach koichai is usher or not. And ikidami koyach koichai obligate the shari. Koyach koichai everyone knows is permitted. Now, in the first version, which is the halacha, the koyach koichai is the machlekes, and Ravashi says that it's also the halacha of Ravashi that koyach koichai is also the machlekes and the Rishonim. What about third level koyach, or fourth level koyach? So not that the screw turns the beam, it turns is attached to the stick that turns the beam down, but there's more levers that one lever like a clock. You have one wheel turning the next wheel that turns the next wheel. What about if the third koyach, the fourth koyach? Is it us then as well or not? Bottom line that Amos says over here that koyach is only us and drinking. So today it's mutter, except we can only hefsid meruba or hefsid. I actually looked yesterday in Kitvah Shulchan Aruch to see, giving a good overview. The whole Hilchos Yain Nesach, which is a number of Simanim Eos, 4 sifrim. Don't know how he did that, but the whole thing is 4 sifrim. Like you read, probably in his time, who drank wine, or who could afford to drink wine, or something like that, or nobody bought wine from a goy b'chlal, or there's no goyim, I don't know. Because every Yiddish house had a goy walking in on Shabbos, taking the candlesticks off the table. The wine was very important to know what happens if I don't know. Very, very short. Anyway, weiter. Rabbi Yaakov, so also Rabbi Yaakov, sorry, I missed the story. Habi Uv the Bekoich Koich, there was a story, but also Rabbi Yaakov have Koich asked. That's how we know Loch Ravashi that Koich is off. Ahu Chavisa, there was a barrel, Ipka Orka. There was an earthenware barrel that split lengthwise. Now, what happens if it split lengthwise? Then both sides will fall apart and all the wine will come gushing out. A guy very nicely jumped in. A guy jumped in and Chavka, and he embraced it with his arms and holding it together so that the wine shouldn't fall out. And the question is that considered Magai de Dover Achar? And it's Kavan is doing it deliberately to hold the wine or not? They allowed what? But not allowed to drink it. You're not allowed to drink it. Why? Because this is Magadid Abracha with Kavana. Right? When we say if it's Abracha and no Kavana, or a third thing is if you have a Kavana Hafchis, like if you have another Kavana, like you want to save the Esrog, you have another Kavana altogether. If it broke lengthwise, because the wine is going to come gushing out. But if it's widthwise, in other words, there was a crack, or somehow or another, the whole barrel cracked horizontally. Now the barrel itself is still sitting on top. The top barrel is sitting on top. So if any wine comes out, it's be very little. It won't go gushing out because the top barrel is still sitting on the bottom part. And what this guy did very nicely, I feel b'shtiyah. Now the guy, what he did was he went on top of the barrel and put his weight on it, so there should be nothing coming out. My timer, Maisa Levena Ka'avid. He's merely acting like tzigul, like bricks. He's a weight. All he is a weight. The wine anyway wasn't really coming out, so therefore it's not considered that he was Magid Avrachet, and it is mutter. But it says in the poskim that if it was a wooden barrel which has hinges, is that even if it's lengthwise, it's all right because the hinges themselves sort of hold it together, even without the goy. So even if there's a crack there, the hinges will more or less keep it together. It's just oozing out a little bit. I went from the guy to talk about they once found the guy standing there next to a wine press. They didn't know what he did. Did he touch the wine? Didn't touch the wine? What happened there? And the question is, with the wine press itself, we're talking about if there were grapes there and there's wine, they don't talk about. We already said before that the wine on the wine press, where you press the grapes, is already usher, like Arvuna, Mishnah Karena. We're talking about it here. It was pretty empty. It was clean. But the guy standing there, we don't know what he's doing there. What do we say? If there's still residue of wine, leftovers of wine that is wet enough, we put something else there, it becomes wet from it, then boy hadocha. You need to rinse it out. Now, niguv doesn't mean like we think it means to be totally dry. Niguv means Rashi brings in the Mishnah later on. We'll see. Niguv means you got to put ashes there, and then you put ashes there. You wash it off. You dry it. You put ashes the second time. You got to put ashes twice, and that's how you get rid of any residual wine that might have been there that and the guy touched. It's gone. Oh, but the lie, if his mom is dry, then rinsing alone is enough. Mishnah. You found the guy standing next to a cistern of wine. And the question is, did the guy touch it or did the guy not touch it? Im yesh loy. Now the guy might be scared if he touches it, he's caught by the yid. It'll be big trouble. So it depends like this. Talk about Yiddish wine sitting by a guy. Im yesh loy milva olav. If the guy has a loan outstanding, and the Gemara will say he has an apoitiki, which means there's a lien on this boy. This is where I'm going to get paid from if you don't pay me money. So the guy feels already a certain entitlement. He feels that he's the balabas already. Then we're worried that he would touch the wine, and he's not scared that somebody will catch it. It's my wine. Because, he's not. He owes it to me, and I'm having a apoitiki. There's a loan on this. Also, it's forbidden. If he doesn't have a milva on this, as we'll see more later, even he owes him money, but it wasn't specifically written up that the lien will be on this boy. Then mutter, then it's permitted. We're not worried the guy will touch it, as we'll see. Not for the boy. If a guy fell into a boy, so no, this is maga, but loy bekavana fell in, but Allah, and he went out. So now this is a case of loy bekavana, and the Gemara will explain he had to die. Because if he stayed alive, then he's going to thank his getchka, his gods, for being saved. So therefore, and as he'll walk out, he might pick up a little bit of wine and do a little nesech because he is appreciative that he was saved. So talking about the guy died, so there's nothing to worry about here. Just the guy touched it, but no intention. Madadai bekana, or he measured it with a measuring stick, and here he did have kavana. The other one was like kavana. Touch it. Here is bit kavana, but through a davar acher. So therefore, he didn't really touch it. A very important rule regarding davar acher, the Shach lays down is when is it davar acher? Every time you touch a bottle of wine, how was the problem? It's a davar acher. And if the guy came and touched the wine and didn't have intention to pour it, then how shouldn't be a problem. And so he says the rule is as follows: when is it considered davar acher? If the guy brought whatever this item with him. He brought a spoon with him. He brought a measuring stick with him. So therefore, then he touches the wine. It's a davar acher. But if the wine was already sitting in something, let's say in a bottle, and the guy touches, that's not called maga de davar acher. That's directly touching the wine. Madada bekana, or hiti, does that see the bekana? Let's say it was a bee, a wasp, whatever, a hornet, it's threatening him. So he was chasing it, and then whatever you were holding in your hand, you flick the wine to get rid of the bee. Again, this is maga aide davar acher, but this one here is really no kavan either. There was foam over there on top of the wine, and you were blowing it away and taking your hand and you're getting rid of it. The story of Amru Yimach, they all said all of these cases you're not allowed to drink it, but you can sell it, which means that today, Malcolm Hefsid, all this will be mutter. But Rab Shimon is matter completely, even drinking. Not as a chavis. If he took the barrel with zorka and he threw it, the guy was angry and he threw it. Even to drink it, because if he did it the chamasa, there's no problem of chasmus here. He's no definition of getting involved with you. So therefore, and it's not kavanah for nisach stam, and also we don't want to encourage the goyim to give them this thing. We can go ahead and start hurting Eden by doing all these things. They'll see there's no benefit in it because he can still drink the wine. They won't do it again. Let's go through the Mishnah. It has to be a lien on this wine. So he feels emboldened. He feels secure that he even gets caught. No problem. I'll prove the Mishnah. Says in the next Mishnah, which we'll learn tomorrow. Let's say if a Yid is making wine on behalf of a guy to sell to Yidden. So the Yid is Mashgiach, much more than Mashgiach. He produced the whole wine. Now, what happens? He doesn't pay the guy for the wine until he sells it. No, he pays as he sells, and the guy makes his money. And now it's sitting in the guy's house. but there has to be a chaysim, a seal, called the Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a seal on it, and it has a key. So there's some protection there, but it's sitting in the guy's house. The Noisa B'Shus, so he pays in the place in the guy's house. The halak kaisiv, if the guy writes, he's kabalti memechamais, he writes, it's as if I already got paid. In other words, you are the owner. He's officially saying, formally saying, you are the owner, and you can come and take the wine whenever you want. Every time you make a sale, come in, take whatever wine you need, even though he didn't get really paid yet, and you're not going to get paid until you sell. He's saying as if he's mutter. Then mutter, why? Because they as long as the Eid has the key or a chesim. Why? Because the guy will be scared to touch it, because then he'll lose the hope, and the Eid won't sell anymore. He'll lose it. If the guy feels no, still my wine until you pay me. That means the guy feels it's his own wine, so the guy will take liberties. Why? So it seems from here the only reason is because the guy did not let the Eid come in, so the guy feels that he's the owner. We're worried. If the guy would allow the Eid to come in, sure, he's permitted. Why is he permitted? Because as if it belongs to the Eid already. Same thing with a loan. It's only if there's an apoitiki, if he say put a lien. When are we scared that the guy will touch it if the guy feels that it's his? So when does the guy feel that it's his by a loan? Only if you put a lien on his barrel. Ronnie Milbo say, being a shmaman is a good idea. Not for the barrel, but a papa, the shon, all the mace, he had to die. I will all the chai, came out alive. Also, my time, I'm a papa, the dom, you know why? Because he'll treat it like it's his holiday. Remember we lived before the day of a chatzna, you can't deal with him. He'll treat it like a holiday, and he might take some wine and pour it, thanking his God for being saved, rescued. Mother the bekana kolelo yemaisiv omi yimocher, that what you're allowed to sell it, you'll have a no, but you're not allowed to drink it in all these cases because it was unintentional. But and even though you touched it directly, but Shimon matter. Shimon says it's totally mutter. Abada Barava made the same expression. We had a similar expression we had a few days ago about the filling my eyes. Shimon should have brachas on his head. In other words, he should be blessed. But when he says mutter, matir afil b'shnia. He's all extremes. When he says something is mutter, you're allowed to drink it. Like in these cases, he holds on. It's without kavana. He fell into the thing. Totally mutter. Or because when Shimon says that something is asr, you should know oiser afil bana. He goes to the other chiefs or completely asr. They said name Rav. I'm allowed to say Rav Chiza Amaziidi halach Rav Shimon, that the halach is like Shimon. He could others say Rav Chiza Amali Abba Bachanan Hachi Amaziidi halach Rav Shimon. But the Bagmar, after all of these different approaches, who said what? Ain halach Rav Shimon. We're not going to matter drinking, even though it's without kavanah. Not all chav is this dorka b'chamas. He tossed it him when he was angry. Leboyer zeh hayemaisa v'shila machshes. Amar Rav, this is the rule that you should know. Kol shebezav tameh, anything that a zav touches and he's metame generates tumah is ba'oivek kachami in a similar situation. A goy oise yain netzach. He does the same approach, whatever it is that the zav touch, whatever it is, make it tameh. A goy makes it yain netzach. Or the kol shebezav toy by a zav is toy. For example, if a zav throws something. He's not metame the person who receives it. He's ba'oivek kacham einu oise yain netzach. By Avodah Zarah, it's not yain netzach as well. Rabun asked Rashi a question. It says not to Sachov. It says now Mishnah. He took the barrel. V'zara kar b'chamosa, and he threw it with. He's angry. Lebor zeha yemaisa Beishon. This was an incident that happened in Beishon. It says here, and they were machshir. It sounds like the only reason why they allowed if he threw it in is because he was angry. So there's no kavanah whatsoever. In fact, it's a totally different intent and blah blah. Sounds like me if he wouldn't have been angry, even though he threw it. It would be asr. But you said kosher bezav tameh and kosher and by a zav he throws is not tameh. Yeah. Was it Hossam? The one answers there. The ka'azl minei uminei. So Rashi learns it means that when he threw the barrel, he didn't throw it out of his hand. He kept the barrel rolling and rolling, getting closer and closer to the wine press. And the last second before he got to the wine press, he dropped it. Because remember, Rashi holds that Aidei Davar Achar, Rashi holds is mamish like maga and everything is asr. Not like the other Rishonim who make a difference. Aidei Davar Achar, especially if it's loy bekavana, and who's Rabbein Tam, who's master completely, and he learns before by the lulav that you touch with your hand the wine, not the lulav itself. So they learn that throwing it is mutter pasha because you have no. It's koyach and koyach is mutter. Rashi, who holds that even though v'achar losos, he says that you dropped it the last second. You dropped the last second. So Rashi says, "Hoyel dekazol minei uminei." You were rolling the barrel. You rolled the barrel till your mamash came to the very end, and then you dropped it. Because otherwise, Rashi holds that koi choy is totally also. That maybe even chamasa would be also, and so on. So therefore, we're talking about over here this case that's also like minei.
But it's, the reason why. What's throwing it?
The case over here is why it's mutter here is if he was angry. It's like this. Rashi says that really it should be totally mutter. Rashi, this should be totally mutter. Sorry? Yeah, that should be mutter. And the reason why it's also if they're angry is because he got so close. He got so close to the thing because he was rolling and rolling and rolling. He got so close to the thing, could be he touched it. Rashi doesn't want to push the pshat. He was standing here, the boy was over there, and he threw it. And that's why it's mutter. Because Rashi says no. Rashi says that he rolled it and rolled it and rolled it. Because according to Rashi, if he threw it, the should be mutter completely. And so he said he rolled and rolled it. And the problem here is not the problem. If it wouldn't be angry, maybe you touched it with your finger. That's the problem. And the others say no. Don't mind you threw it, but if it's bechamosay, then it's loy bekavana. Loy bekavana is totally mutter. And if he's angry, that's loy bekavana. But if he's not angry, then it's kavana. Then it's awesome.